Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Welcome to Triggered. I'm Cory Morgan. This is the Western Standard's daily news ranting interview, just general babbling show, everything from daily observances to interviewing prospective prime ministers, as I will do in a short while here. So I like to remind everybody as I start up who's tuning in, hey, make use of that comment scroll. It's good to see you there. I like seeing you checking in from all over. It lets me know I'm not just talking to myself as I can be prone to do when driving. There's actually people listening to my mental meanderings and wanderings. Use that scroll to keep it interactive, keep it lively. Chat with each other, chat with me, send questions for my guests. Again, I don't necessarily read them all out on the air or to the guest, but I do see them all. And again, of course, I always like to remember, or at least remind you guys to remember, let's keep it fairly civil. We can take it seriously without getting too crabby with each other. All right, let's start with a couple of the observances while a few more folks come in on the show here. Those daily things, those important things to watch. It's National Bratwurst Day. Hey, for sausage lovers, this is the day, and there's nothing like a good bratwurst, something on the barbecue, keep the house cool during this heat wave. Get something like that going out there. Nice and greasy. Really fills the stomach well. Good summer themes for these observances anyways, if they aren't terribly serious. But the next summer theme I think might not be a good addition was National Roller Coaster Day. Because, I mean, the risks if you've eaten too many bratwursts and then get onto a roller coaster, it can be pretty nasty. But still, roller coasters are pretty fun. They've been a staple at amusement parks and fairs for, 100 and some years. There's some real cool old ones down in the States. We don't have a heck of a lot of them out here in Western Canada. They just kind of those temporary ones typically. But every area has a roller coaster somewhere. Just, again, if you've eaten too many bratwursts, maybe either ride in the back or just don't ride at all. I think I mentioned on the show before, I traumatized a babysitter when I was a kid from eating too much fair food and then barfing all over during one of the rides. Awful thing. Even I still remember it to this day. And this one kind of ties in with, I didn't know anybody would actually celebrate this, but it's National Surveillance Day. Yes, this is the day that they're watching you. You can see, I don't know if it's as literal as that picture of the gentleman looking at the monitors with all the pictures, but it's kind of like that. I mean, all you have to do is say something in front of your phone and you know you're going to get some ads for whatever you were just talking about. And of course, on a serious note, our government is constantly invading our privacy and sneaking into our business. And the RCMP, now the government's all upset. I've talked about that a couple times on here because the RCMP have been looking into the cell phones of members of parliament too. Suddenly it's serious when the politicians are suffering from their privacy being invaded, when it's not such a big deal to them initially. Okay, so today I do have, as I said, a couple of guests coming on. I've got, just paradoxically saying every day is Surveillance Day here, and that's true. Okay, Conservative Party of Canada leadership candidate Jean Charest, he's coming on one more time. The race is only a few weeks away from wrapping up, and we'll have one more talk with him on his way out. I've honestly, again, I've found him somewhat impressive. If I remember, I don't know if he'd be the one who'd get my vote, but he's definitely grown on me and endeared himself a bit over the course of this campaign. He says the right things. Maybe it's just because he's a professional politician, or maybe there's just more to the guy than meets the eye with some. All the same, we'll have one more talk with Mr. Charest before they get to the voting day on September 10th. Then Western Standard columnist Myke Thomas is going to be coming in studio. And Myke writes about a lot of things, but his specialty is definitely the real estate and economics things. And we're starting to see some of the correction on real estate prices these days going on with the interest rates going up. And we're seeing a little less inflationary pressure. But the best way to put it is, though, it's less bad. So we'll talk to Myke and see what's up with that. Okay, I'm going to talk about something that's still swirling all over the news and everybody's jumping on and piling on, and it's been interesting. But since Jason Kenney got rolling on going after Danielle Smith's policy plank, I just thought I'd speak more on the race then. So, let's talk about that. Danielle Smith's return to politics and rise in popularity caught many people flat-footed, including myself. If somebody had said 2 years ago that Smith was going to make a successful return into the political sphere, I would have laughed in their faces. While she established herself well as a popular talk radio host, there was no way she could overcome that breach of trust with party members in her infamous floor crossing of 2014. At least I would have said that. And clearly I would have been wrong. Smith's floor crossing is her weakest link. It makes people question her judgment and loyalty to party members when push comes to shove. One would expect her leadership opponents to be focused on this when shooting outward. And while they have addressed it a bit, they're still mostly too hung up on attacking Smith's Sovereignty Act. Now, Smith came out of the gates hard in the leadership race with the proposed act and an aggressive campaign. She took the presumptive lead of the race while other candidates appeared stunned. They were left kind of figure out how to, try and deflate her campaign rather than pumping up their own. And that's where they're making a mistake. Smith has taken the tactic of playing offense, and it's led to her dominating the discussions. Opposing campaigns have found themselves in constant reactionary mode in response to Smith's proposals, and it's made them look weak and defensive. Smith is proposing taking a similar approach with Ottawa if she should become premier, and it clearly appeals to a large number of Albertans. She's signaling that she doesn't plan on waiting for the next federal incursion into provincial rights, and she'll be drawing a line in the sand before it actually happens. And the campaigns have been flailing and trying to poke holes in Smith's proposed Sovereignty Act and saying it just won't work. Kenny called it nuts as he jumped into the mix. Kenny spent 3.5 years in the Premier's office, losing battle after battle with Ottawa. Flaccid court challenges, unkept promises for things like a provincial pension plan. Where is it, Kenny? Provincial police force. Don't see one, Kenny. Property rights legislation. Seem to have forgotten that one too. And all of it's been ineffectual in hindering federal aggression towards the West. I mean, Trudeau's surely got a corner of his office wallpapered with the angry letters sent from Premier Kenny during his time in office. So Smith's approach to dealing with Ottawa may or may not succeed, but at least it is questionable. We already know for sure and with certainty that Kenny's approach isn't going to work. What's it gotten us? Lost court challenges, new firearm bans, increasing carbon taxes, investment chill, and now a possible fertilizer ban attacking Western farmers. Trudeau, he knows that Kenny's a toothless tiger and he has nothing to fear in assaulting the West. It's time for not just Alberta, but all the Western provinces to start making autonomous changes and saying to Ottawa, what are you going to do about it? Citizens are tired of talk. They're spoiling for a fight. Constantly waiting for Ottawa to throw the first punch and then weakly trying to counter it has failed. Smith's offering a way to bring the battle to Ottawa on Alberta's terms. Make the feds respond to the province's actions rather than the other way around. The approach might fail, but citizens are prepared to go down fighting at this point and are embracing the Sovereignty Act on that basis. Now, candidates for the UCP leadership would be well served to cut back on attacking Smith and look at their own policies. There's a void being filled with Smith's Sovereignty Act, and it's going to win the leadership race for her if the opponents can't propose a better way to deal with Ottawa. Every time they attack Smith, they just give her more airtime to promote her plan, while her opponents just don't have a plan right now. It's not enough to just keep saying over and over her plan won't work. The candidates need to propose a plan then that will, and so far none of them have. Sitting on our heels and waiting for the next assault from Ottawa isn't an option in the eye of UCP members. They want an action plan. No more playing defense. It's time to play offense. Smith's competitors in this race had better figure that out and soon. That's what's got me going today, guys. Okay. So let's see what else is happening out there. Always lots on the go. With check into the newsroom with our news editor, Dave Naylor, and see what's going on out there. Oh, we'll check in with them soon. Seems to be a bit of a technical hang-up out there. We'll get that rolling quickly. I noticed one of the stories, and Dave might mention it coming up, has been there's a lot of people have probably seen it, even if you don't watch CTV. Longtime anchor Lisa LaFlamme, she's been with CTV for decades, and they fired her pretty quickly and unceremoniously. I guess they did give her notice a while back that it was going to happen, but as she said, it caught her completely off guard. And they're replacing her with a younger gentleman and a person of color. It's really sounding more like they're heading for a diversity hire and are cleaning out the what they see as older dead wood. And it seems to be backfiring. Legacy media outlets are losing ground all the time, and I'm happy to see it. I mean, we're an alternative outlet. We're looking to eat their lunch anyways and cut in on what those guys are doing. But man, they just keep shooting themselves in the feet. I mean, when you've got personalities who have followers who respect and trust them, who've been built up over decades of work, you don't torpedo them. Not when you're getting bad ratings and losing your sponsors and in trouble as it is. You hang on to your assets. But again, go woke, go broke, carry on CTV. It's as I've said before, those guys seem to be, almost as bad as CBC, the way they've been going. But of course, they're really gunning and trying their hardest to try and fill that woke void on what's going on out there with the media scene these days. So, I mean, we'll keep watching that, and we'll see if it Well, we'll see how it impacts CTV's ratings. I might have Dave in there for the newsroom check-in, so we seem to have had that figured out. That's the great fun of being live. You get to do things on the fly as you go. So there is Dave Naylor. What's happening out there in the news today?
Oh, Cory, I was getting a bit of PTSD when you were talking about roller coaster day. Many years ago at the Stampede, I had a couple too many beers in the media lounge and then a bag of mini donuts, and then some idiot said we should go on the Zipper. And I don't like rides to begin with. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Zipper. It was the Polar Express. It's one where everybody, do you want to go faster? And everybody's screaming yes, and I'm screaming, oh no, for God's sake, no. And yeah, when that ride was over, the people behind me were less than impressed. Let's leave it at that. And I scurried off into the midway.
Yeah, it's a wonder we pay for those experiences sometimes. You know, I went for the first time this year with Jane in years down there, and those rides, I mean, it's the same old ones from the 80s when we were kids, you know, the Zipper, the Octopus, they haven't changed a bit. The only thing is that the carnies look a little more ragged.
Yeah, you know, you look at them putting it all together, and it's you're kind of amazed there hasn't been any major disasters over the years. But you know, I haven't been on a ride since that night, so I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, my riding days are done too.
So, and my mom is happy this morning, Cory. She's watching the show, drinking out of her brand new Resistance coffee mug. She's got the Liberal Tears one. So she's says it's a good cup, and yeah, it's only took 2 days to get there. So good old Resistance coffee.
I was about to say they sure ship fast because you were just talking about sending one to her a couple days ago.
Yeah, 2 days. It was great. Right onto her, right on her doorstep.
Right on. Gives us a good self-serving plug too. I mean, if it'd taken 2 weeks, we'd have to just kind of stay silent about it and keep doing the ads.
Of course we would. Of course we would. So on the website this morning, Cory, it's being dominated by the Freedom Convoy and the economy. 2 stories on the Convoy. The Justice Rousselot, who is in charge of it. It's going to start on September 18th. So that's just over a month from now. So that's going to be very interesting. And he vows to get to the bottom of things. And a Freedom Convoy protester who is facing jail. The charges have been stayed in his case. You've mentioned Myke Thomas and the economy. The inflation rate dropped today to 7.6% for July. So that's a bit of good news for a change. And he's got a story on inflation is down and housing starts are up. So a bit of good news for homeowners and prospective home buyers. And on the site, Cory, we've got a story about your replacement, Nigel Hannaford, who is starting next week. And it looks like he's not going to take any guff from anybody. So we'll look forward to welcoming him into the office next week.
Yeah, we're maintaining our curmudgeonly sort of theme here, at least in the opinions department. So people won't expect too much radical change happening in there in that aspect.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I will no longer be the oldest person in the newsroom. So it's going to be a good day for me.
Right on. Okay, well, thanks, Dave. Always appreciate the updates. Glad your mother's drinking from where we got matching cups going on now with these Liberals Tears cups, and I'll
exactly. I don't think she's going to be able to persuade my dad to drink from them. He's a bit of a die-in-the-wool Liberal, and they always joke that they cancel each other's vote out. So, but my mom will enjoy it, that's for sure.
Right on. Okay, thanks, Dave. We'll talk to you a little later.
Thanks, Cory.
All right, lots on the go, lots of stories. Stuff is breaking, stuff is being written, stuff is being posted, and Dave always diligently makes sure we keep good news copy up there. I mean, as I was able to rant about, our legacy media mainstays like the CTV, they're going down, guys. They're the past, their history. And part of why the Western Standard's been doing really well is a couple of reasons. I mean, for one, is because Dave is getting good news content out there. He's a news editor. He's making sure it's quality stuff, breaking stuff, and original stuff. You can only get some of this stuff with us. And those who can get that are the members who subscribe, because we don't take tax dollars. So thousands of subscribers. It's been fantastic. And that's how we can keep doing this. That's how we've got reporters across the country. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is where I nag you. Take out a subscription, guys. Free trial. You can see if it's worth it for you, and I'm sure you will find it worth it. $99 for a year. $10 if you want to go month by month. Again, it's less than old newspaper subscriptions used to cost. less than a lot of people are spending with their subscriptions with some questionable sites out there, I'm sure, too. So check it out, westernstandard.news/membership, and, help us keep providing this product for you. We're not asking for charity. We're selling a service, and that service is good news. So get out there and take out a membership. The other way we do pay our bills is through sponsors, and I'm going to run a quick ad, actually, from the Alberta Prosperity Project. They've got something coming up here, and this will let you know what it's all about.
On Thursday, August 25th, the Alberta Prosperity Project and Rebel News are hosting a special UCP Leadership Dinner and Forum at the Edmonton Convention Centre. We're asking the UCP leadership candidates tough but fair questions, like how will they protect our rights and freedoms from the United Nations Agenda 2030 and World Economic Forum's Great Reset? How will they fight the climate change initiative? And how will they counter inflation? You won't want to miss this event. Get your ticket today at www.albertaprosperityproject.com.
There you go, folks. Check them out. www.albertaprosperityproject.com. And we've had Dr. Modry from there on this show before, and they talk about a lot of common sort of issues to what we do around here. So, yes, they got a big event coming up, and they're looking for folks to sign up. Let's see. I'll just look at a couple of the comments here. Some people saying cut the cord with Shaw. You don't need CTV anymore. I hear you. I'm with you. Jet Gorgon saying, can we haze the new guy? We'll see. I wish you the best. Mr. Nigel Hannaford, that was announced yesterday. So he's going to be the new opinion editor starting next week. A raft of experience. If you've looked at the story online, he was with the Calgary Herald for a number of years and a number of publications. He was a speechwriter for Stephen Harper for some years. Great deal of experience he's bringing to the table and connections. And I was talking with him yesterday. I ran across him a few times way back when I was leading the Alberta Independence Party. He was interviewing me then. And he's going to be a great addition to the Standard. It's really going to help add to the opinion section. And I'll still be contributing. As I said, I'll be writing my columns, but now I'll submit them Mr. Hannaford, and he'll go through and give me the thumbs up or thumbs down as to whether they'll be published. I should get through on most of them. So Jet saying, can we haze him? Well, we'll see. We'll see how well he takes it. He's, as I said, a good, solid, older fella and does a hell of a job. So we'll see how well your hazing goes with it. Tracy saying, is he taking over Triggered in the same time slot? We're still kind of sorting out what we're going to do with our digital presence and everything. So we'll see what evolves. There's definitely going to be something coming. We're not going to leave a big void there, but for the time being, all we know for sure is we are in my last 4 episodes of this show with me at the head of it, I guess. Anyways, Shirley saying, well, I'll be missed. So I appreciate that. And again, I'll still be around, just not on this particular show every day. And we'll go from there. Carrie Lynn Oldford saying, I don't think I'll be following Western Standard much when Cory's gone. He's why I paid attention. I'm flattered and I appreciate that, Carrie. But I mean, awesome. We got a lot of great personalities and people here with a lot of content too. I mean, Melanie's going to be doing more of her excellent interviews and shows. I think Mr. Hannaford will. And I'll be appearing on some things, probably at the pipeline and stuff like that, and doing things as we go along too. It just won't be this particular show going any longer. That's the way it is. Things change. So yeah, Dave mentioned this in his news update. I like some of the language coming out, at least. I mean, everybody, I'm with you. I'm cynical. I'm not too sure with this government and when they set things up and they set commissions up and things like that. But the judicial inquiry hearings are beginning September 19th into the Freedom Convoy and more particularly into the government's use of the Emergencies Act. And we can't always dismiss these justices just because it was Liberal appointed or because it was chosen by that. What I like about this, it was built into the legislation. It shows they do understand just how important and how serious the invocation of the Emergencies Act is, where they actually built into it saying you have to hold a full inquiry after having invoked this act to justify why you did it. It can't be taken lightly. And the language out of Justice Rouleau sounds like he's taking that role very seriously and that he's going to be digging into this. And this government's going to have to come up with their case as to why they invoked, what was the modern version of the War Measures Act? It has been changed since it was the War Measures Act, but it's the same thing. It's a form of martial law. It's an act you invoke where you suspend individual rights, if only temporarily, to address an immediate emergency. Nothing to be taken lightly at all. And they better make a good case as to why they did it. And it's going to take a while. That's the unfortunate thing. The gears of government always move terribly slowly, unfortunately. And, we won't get the outcome of that inquiry, I think, until, I believe, getting into January or so. But still, it's going to be a few months. And I believe they're going to be broadcasting the commission meetings and the hearings from Justice Rouleau on that act. So we'll be able to really cover it and see what's going on in there. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I do like the language coming out of Justice Rouleau. I think we could see some positive developments from those hearings, looking into it, because the more news we get, the more stuff that keeps getting leaked out, the weaker the case sounds for the government having moved so quickly into such the nuclear option, I guess, when it comes to enforcement, particularly with a recent revelation making it sound like negotiations with the city of Ottawa might have been on the brink of bringing it to a close. Like maybe they'd been able to negotiate it out. I mean, the Emergencies Act is supposed to be last resort. That means you try everything, and they ignored one of the options and invoked it anyway. So we'll see what happens as that comes. Okay, I see my guest in the lobby, and we'll bring him into the show and have a conversation. We'll talk about some more of the federal issues, and it's Mr. Jean Charest. He's running for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership, of course, and we're getting near the tail end of the campaign. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Charest.
Thank you very much. Delighted to join you. Thank you.
So I really appreciate you coming on one more time. I imagine you got to be getting tired. It's been a long haul. You're getting into the final 3 weeks here.
We are, and it's been a long race because we've started early on, and the first phase was recruiting new members. That finished on the 3rd of June, and only those who are members as of the 3rd of June are eligible to vote. We now know there's 678,000 of them. It's very impressive, all-time record. And now we're in the second phase of persuading people and getting them to vote, Cory. This is a challenge because it's a mail-in ballot. It's a preferential ballot. People have to indicate their first, second, third choice. They don't have to indicate, by the way, a second or third choice. After they have voted for me, Cory, they don't have to fill in the rest of the ballot if they don't want to. And then they have to send in a photocopy of a photo ID. So you can imagine, just the description tells you that it's a lot for the average person who has a busy life. They may very easily just set it aside. So we're pressing people to vote. Go out there and vote. The other part of it, Cory, that is difficult to read from everyone's point of view, including the media, is that it's 100 points per riding, not the number of members. So you could have 7,000 members in a riding, 100 points. 700 members in a riding, 100 points. And that's where we have focused our campaign to be as efficient as possible. So it's all about getting out the vote.
Yeah, and getting out the vote, whether it's for folks who haven't dealt with partisan races, it's particularly important in nominations and leadership races because people are selling memberships like all get out, but often people might not be the most motivated voters. The campaign that sells the most memberships doesn't always win. It's a matter of waking them up and saying, okay, come on, now you got to follow through and get that voted. And as you said, with it being a photocopied piece of identification and mailing it, the turnout's probably as hard as all of you guys are working on this is probably going to be a bit limited.
It will be forced, it's going to be a challenge. So we're working on that right now. Just add another twist to it. The Brown campaign, Patrick Brown was disqualified. His leadership, his organizers have all come over to me almost to a person. And we are now working with them so that the people that they had recruited, a lot of them in cultural communities, are voting, and that they'll vote for me. And we're very encouraged by that because they are voting. They are supportive of certainly my leadership, and they are not, say it very directly. They're rather anti-Poilievre, and so they'll be voting. But we need to talk to them, mobilize them, and motivate them to vote. So that's what we're doing right now. And we have, by the way, until the 6th of September at 5 o'clock to get the ballots in party headquarters. And after that, all other ballots that come in after that moment, at 5 o'clock on the 6th of September, will not be counted. So more of a challenge for us to get out there and motivate people to vote.
So actually that reminded me of something because it was so sudden, the departure of Mr. Brown from the race. Was his name still on the ballots then, or did they get it?
Well, the party decided to leave his name on the ballot because the ballots had all been printed up. Now, what's the consequence of that? if someone votes for Patrick Brown as first choice, or had done that, and indicated Jean Charest as their second choice, well, then that second choice will be interpreted as a first choice for me. So that's good, in that scenario. If they've just voted for Patrick Brown, no one else, and left the rest of the ballot blank, then the ballot will not count. I mean, there will be no consequence to that ballot. So that's it. It just adds just another color or layer to the complications of the race, but so be it. We're working hard to make sure that people understand how to vote and who to vote for. If they want a leader who can actually win the country, Cory, all the polling indicates that if I become the leader, I will form a national majority conservative government. If it's Pierre Poilievre, we stay in opposition. So that's very much the ballot question for a number of conservatives who are just tired of losing. I mean, we've lost 3 consecutive election campaigns, and it's not the Liberals that won them, we lost them, and that's enough, frankly. So now's the time to choose a leader who is going to unite the party, the country, and who will win a national government.
Okay, well, we're looking at, I guess, 2 scenarios that could be happening the day after September 10th, getting into the 11th and 12th. I'd like to kind of examine both of them. We'll start with the positive one from your perspective. You've won the leadership. You've taken September 11th as a break. I mean, to say that you are the one who can win the general election, that still means there's going to be a heck of a lot of work between that day and general election day, whenever that might be. What are your first moves as the new leader of the party?
I will hit the ground running on September 11th, the day after, in fact, the evening of, to talk to the other leadership candidates to make sure that they know that they're welcome aboard my team, all of them, including Pierre Poilievre. I will then meet with the caucus members and the leadership of the party in very, very short order, in the hours and the days that will follow, to make sure that everyone knows that as a leader, they are welcome in my team, that we are going to be working together to prepare the next election campaign and to win that election campaign. And I'm not going to lose a day the moment I become the leader to do that. We need to prepare the platform for the election campaign. I can, tell you in advance, Cory, it's going to be very much focused on the economy and a national government able to deliver big projects and make big things happen. That's where I'm at, and that's what I've done all my life. And to unify that caucus and that party, and that's exactly what I'll deliver on, to deliver a national government.
Okay, and then I guess a priority as well, and it's hard to tell where, but you'd want to get a seat in the House of Commons as soon as possible. You're one of the contenders who doesn't currently have one. Is there an area you would have in mind already, or spots that look like they might become vacant?
Let me share a secret with you. I'd love to run out west. If there were a seat that opened up out west, I'd love to run out west. And the general election campaign, my of course, because of where I am from, and my attachment to the eastern townships of Quebec, of where I'm from, that's another story. But to get into the House of Commons as rapidly as possible, which is what I would want to do, I think it would be great to have a seat in Western Canada.
So if the outcome doesn't come out as you hope, and perhaps you're the second place finisher, I know it's hard to speculate, but what sort of approach to maintain unity and positivity for the party, could you be taking at that point?
Cory, I led this party when there were only 2 members left after the 93 catastrophic election campaign. And there was 2. And I stuck around. I showed up. I didn't walk away from it. So that, anyone who questions my loyalty to the party, frankly, needs to remember the history and what I've stood for and what I've fought for all my life. I will remain a conservative because that's who I am. And those are the values I believe in. Those are the values that I worked with when I governed and formed a government. So I'll be there, and I'm going to remain active. And for the rest, the only scenario for me I see is being the leader of the party and leading us into a campaign and winning a national government.
Well, I appreciate that, because again, these races can be such good party building exercises, but they can also lead to a lot of fracturing and cause more damage than before they even began. So, I mean, maintaining a positive tone, I think, is really important right now.
It is very, but let's be honest here. If there's someone who's going to have a lot of bridges to fix, who's burned a lot of bridges, it's Mr. Poilievre. I mean, he's been calling do we have to go through it calling people liars and calling on their integrity or accusing them and not being conservatives or blah, blah, blah? I mean, as though there's purity tests, as though there's some laboratory in which we get tested. I mean, what do you say to the electorate when they want to vote for you? No, don't vote for me because no, don't vote. You're not a conservative. If we're going to form a government, we have to have an open mind and be welcoming of all those who believe in the same things we believe in and want to support us. And that's been my story. And all the polling says that. You look at all the polling says, I become the leader, we form a government. And I'm sorry to say, if Mr. Poilievre becomes the leader, we stay in opposition.
Well, so what have you got on your schedule for this final few weeks to get that vote out and encourage people to mark that ballot your way?
I just came off a week on the road. I was in Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia and the Toronto area, Vaughan, Hamilton, and Mississauga, Toronto. I'm heading to Quebec City tomorrow, and I'm going to be back working out of Montreal on Friday and Saturday, and then I'll probably hit the road back in Ontario next week. So it's going to be a very busy time. Tomorrow will be a very busy day in Quebec City. We're meeting with some of our members, supporters. We have a ballot events. We organize events, Cory, where people bring in their ballots and they can photocopy their ID, and we help them get that organized. And then we have a fundraiser in the evening. So it's a very intense, very busy period.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk to us towards the tail end of the campaign. And I wish you all the best of luck. And we'll be watching with interest on the evening of September 10th, Mr. Charest.
Thank you very much, Cory. And Cory, could I ask you a favor?
By all means.
Could you vote for me?
I'm not a member, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Cory.
All right, thanks.
You would. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Charest. All right, so that is, as you saw, Mr. Jean Charest running for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership. And yes, it gives me a good out. I can't commit to any of them as I am not a member of the party, so I can dodge it. And I know I can see in the comment scroll that this isn't the most fertile waters for Mr. Charest, but he really has. He's kind of drawn my respect over the course of this campaign. He's come out, he's stepped into the lion's den. We saw with people when he came out to some of the Calgary visits and he spoke. We saw that the Petroleum Club at the Western Standard event. Again, a lot of people sort of saying similar things that I heard. They're saying, he's still not my first vote. But boy, actually, once this guy spoke, he impressed and he built some respect out here and things like that. And that's part of why I wanted to ask, and that's part of why my concern is, even if perhaps he doesn't win the leadership, which by the looks of the numbers is pretty unlikely, he still definitely represents a distinct segment and portion of the party. And you don't want them running out the door into the hands of the Liberals when it comes to voter intention. Party unity is so integral right now. I mean, the Justin Trudeau Liberals are hoping their utmost that this party rips itself up, that it keeps fighting with itself. Just like in Alberta, we're seeing here too, Rachel Notley is really hoping that the provincial race here is as divisive as possible. And I can see some people saying, Alma Taylor, stop promoting the guy. I'm not promoting, I'm speaking my views and thoughts on him. And I bring him on. And listen, I've had Mr. Poilievre on here a number of times, and he's more than welcome to come back on. But he's not been terribly receptive to coming on and doing a lot of these interviews. So, I'm just giving as much time to the other candidates. We've also had, Roman Baber and Leslyn Lewis, and all of them have been on here, except for Brown. And I'm not sad at Brown's loss from this race. That was a bizarre segment of the leadership. So again, we've had him on. I'm just saying what my interpretations have been over this last few times and seeing him and hearing from him. He's not the number one choice for the commenters here. I didn't expect him to be. And as I said, if I was a member, he probably wouldn't be my number one choice either. But I do actually think more highly of him now than I did 3 months ago. Maybe I'm being snowed. I don't know. But that's where I'm sitting with it right now. Either way, it's not too long. Only a few weeks now, and we're going to see the outcome of this race. So that's moving along and seeing where we're going. Okay, I'm going to speak to one of our sponsors while I'm going, getting back to Liberals, Liberal Tears. this mug that Dave's mom has now as well. You know, with the Resistance Coffee Company. It's not just the coffee these guys offer. They got lots of great swag, you know, liberal tears, defund the CBC. Black Gold is their dark roast, you know. Defund the CBC is some of their stuff. Empty promises for the decaf there. And the frustrating thing, we get so much Bed Bath and Beyond, companies like that. I like bringing them up, you know. You think you're buying a product and you find out they're donating to companies that want to shut down your resources or your job or into other woke causes. You don't have to worry about that with Resistance Coffee. These guys are the opposite. They do donate to causes. They do take 10% of everything that they take in sales, and they give it to causes that stand up for your rights, such as the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Hey, that's a good cause. You know, John Carpay and the others, the lawyers within them, they've been Jay Cameron, they've been working hard for your rights. Some of your money goes towards that. And then 10% more comes off if you use resistancecoffee.com/triggered for your first order. You get 10% off. So 10% comes off the bill. 10% goes to good causes that are standing up for your rights. And best of all, that really is the truth of it, it's good coffee. You don't have to buy some sub-rate coffee in order to make a political statement. You're getting good coffee in the process. And you can buy things like coffee mugs and t-shirts and everything else. So check these guys out. They're a great sponsor. They're fun. It's a good product. They deliver to your door. They're a Western Canadian company. Resistancecoffee.com, and use that /triggered to get your 10% off of your first order of it. Okay. So let's see. I was going through the news just a second. I just look at the comments here, but anyways. Ward PR68 saying, as a suggestion, wear my tie around my head for the Friday show. That's what everybody wants to see. Yeah, you know, the necktie thing has been a point of contention with my time here for quite some time. Derek loves sending me the close-up shots of my badly tied ties or my wayward collar and things like that. I don't think I'll go around with wearing it on my head, but there's probably a high chance, since I don't think I have a guest coming in studio that day, that I may do the show without wearing pants. And that's only going to make life miserable for Nico and others, but you guys won't have to witness that. I'll just be knowing it in the back of my own mind as I babble at you for my final show. You know, and speaking a little bit actually on Friday's show, somebody I've booked has been kind of interesting. I yesterday was talking about, you know, how the Liberal Party of Alberta ran their leadership race, or tried to, and nobody even applied for the job. And I was scrolling through Twitter. You know, I play around on there quite a bit. Cory B. Morgan, that's my main playground there. And the Alberta Ledge hashtag, which is usually a cesspool. And I saw this fella, though, he'd posted and he tagged the Western Standard and a few things with a TikTok video in response to my show yesterday when I talked about the Liberals at that. And this gentleman is running for a Liberal nomination in Edmonton. And his TikTok video was actually kind of interesting and, you know, good-natured and everything. And boy, talk about running for a tough cause. Even when your party hasn't managed to get somebody willing to lead it, to still maintain optimism and run for a nomination, I had to talk to this guy. So I got him booked on Friday. We're going to talk with him, and I don't have his name handy, but it should be a fun conversation. And you know, that's what I want to get at with this. I mean, I can have people on and we can have respectful conversations, even if we don't necessarily agree with everything that we're talking about all the time. And that'll be the case this Friday with this fella. Man, I wish I could find his name here. But either way, I'll be advertising that before we get to it. So here was something out of the shocking file, kind of. I mean, I've gone on about that with healthcare a lot and everything. But the CBC, they've got a weekly political show they call The House. You know, I used to listen to it on CBC radio when I'd work south of the border, because it's the only Canadian content I could get on satellite. And yeah, usually it was pretty lefty, lean and crap and everything. But still, they had a segment called, Does Canada Need More Private Healthcare? But the thing that was strange was they actually had a doctor on the show who said yes, who supports it, who says it's better and it's a way to help fix things. Now, it's not shocking to see a doctor support that, and it's not shocking to see the CBC asking if we need more healthcare. I'm shocked to see the CBC actually ran the guy. And let's see, LinkedIn user, I'll just get sidetracked for a second, said, what functionally is the difference between the Alberta Liberals and the Alberta Party? Well, the Alberta Party has a leader. But aside from that, not a heck of a lot, actually. Not a heck of a lot. And that's something that drives the Alberta Party nuts. But they've always been, I call them stealth liberals. You know, they keep pretending not to be liberal, but they embrace all the liberal policies. They know the liberal name in Alberta is pretty much toxic. You just can't win under that banner in this province. So they felt if they could just put a little bit of blue paint on that they might get away with it. But election after election, they just get slaughtered because people scratch them a little and see that red underneath and say, to hell with you guys. Either way, getting back to what I was saying with the CBC actually talking. I mean, it's baby steps we're talking. And I know most CBC listeners and Liberals won't admit it, but this is indicating the degree of how bad the Canadian system is actually collapsing. I mean, how much it's falling apart when even the state broadcasters finally admitting maybe we could start entertaining the conversation of changing the system a little more, of accepting that having some more private provision might help us all. Because that conversation has been considered taboo. I mean, it was a sacred cow that you're not allowed to even speak on. And even the CBC is starting to air people who are saying, hey, we got to look at some different options here and things. So, I was kind of, I know the CBC is still irreparable. I want to see it totally defunded. I want to see it gone. But I look at these things as bellwethers, as indicators that, well, in a negative way, I think even the lefties at the CBC realize we're coming up on an economic crash. We've got a healthcare system where people are dying on waiting lists. People are dying waiting for care. And throwing more money at it isn't fixing it. We've got to do something different, possibly radically different. Yeah. And I think everybody's going to conclude that, except for unions and the NDP in general, who, of course, would just rather we all died waiting for care as long as we died equally waiting, which we won't, by the way, anyways, because people of means will cross the border and go somewhere else to get their care anyhow. In fact, they already are. And people without much means will cross the border if they really need to get it. They'll mortgage their house, so they'll borrow from family members or do whatever they have to. Because when your choice is live or die on a waiting list, they're going to choose to live and they're going to go get it somewhere else. So let's have that somewhere else being here. Maybe keep some of our health professionals here and broaden the system. I mean, just spending more money doesn't work. Let's see, the inflation rate. Yeah, this is something I was talking to Dave mentioned before too, and I'll talk a bit about Myke about that when he comes in. So our inflation rate, and they're listening to the news, they're just jubilant and celebratory. It fell. It's down to 7.6% in July. That's just less bad, you guys. It's not good. I mean, I guess it's better than a constant growth in the trajectory of inflation. But it's still a high inflation rate. I mean, the 8.1%, so we're talking a 0.5% difference, was the highest we had seen since 40 years ago. So now that it's dropped to 7.6, okay, it's a good direction, but don't be breaking out the champagne and celebrating yet, guys. Also, part of the reason the inflation starts dropping is because the interest rates have been cranked up by the central bank, and that slows economic activity, and that brings down some prices on some things, which has to be done. But if that tool is overused, if it's used too fast, it's used too hard, we go into recession. So yeah, inflation will be fine. It'll be down again, but nobody will have any money to spend anyways because we broke. We're in a recession. Things are going to be getting worse around here before they get better. But at least they're talking about some of that. This story was something else. When is this crap going to end? So this was a guy, Derek Garlick, and his wife, Linda. They went on an Alaskan cruise in mid-July. And I guess Dave picked up COVID-19 towards the end of the trip. He's vaccinated. Most people who catch COVID are. And he spent the last 2 days isolated in his cabin. And then the cruise line escorted him to a bus with 14 others who were infected to the Vancouver Airport Sheraton, and they had to spend 8 days locked in the hotel, basically imprisoned in quarantine. And this, according to federal rules, Canadians returning from abroad have to isolate if they tested positive. His wife, she tested negative, so she flew home. But he was stuck there for 8 days in a Vancouver hotel. The hotel quarantine cost $5,700, which he had to pay up front. And apparently Holland America is going to reimburse him for that, or his trip insurance or something. But the bottom line is just the absurdity of this, the ridiculousness of this, these stupid, costly regulations. It's costing him 8 days of his life. It's costing, even if the cruise line pays it, it's costing them thousands of dollars. It's taking up room in this hotel. It's madness. And they won't drop these damn regulations. They're stupid. And it's causing damage. What is this doing to Canada's tourist market? I mean, who the hell wants to travel to this backwater country? And that's what I'm going to call it now. It is backwater. It's this garbage outdated COVID-19 control measures that just hound and harass people and make their experience miserable and expensive. They aren't coming here. We're competing with the whole world for tourism dollars. And I tell you what, there's nothing better for a local economy than tourism dollars. Nothing. You don't have to dig a resource out of the earth. You don't have to process oil. You don't have to invent a product. You don't have to manufacture something. All you have to do is be open, and people come here with their money from somewhere else and they give it to you. They give it to you. They spend it on restaurants. They spend it on hotels. They buy gas. They buy souvenirs. They take tours. They employ all sorts of people out here. It's beautiful, just money pouring into your nation from another nation. Just clear dollars. And Prime Minister Dingleberry is still fixated on keeping these rotten COVID regulations that nobody else in the world is maintaining any longer. And it's costing these industries dearly. And we're going into a recession and times are only getting worse. Not only that, I mean, that same story, that same article was an epidemiologist, because there's people like, well, I don't see your doctorate in epidemiology. Okay, well, this epidemiologist, Colin Furness, is opposed to hotel quarantining, saying they aren't quarantine facilities. The bug's still going to spread, and it's a waste of time, money, and resources and stressing people. But hey, what does he know, right? Let's get back further into the very deep file of government incompetency. We might as well. It's always an easy theme to poke into, and they always give me lots of examples. Dave mentioned that. Yeah, Parks Canada, because every government department, I mean, they're bloated with bureaucrats and pointy-headed, pencil-pushing knobs, and they're pissing away your money or even siphoning your money at every opportunity they can. That's the problem when you get big government. Parks Canada, you wouldn't think that'd be a hotbed of some stuff going on. Well, secretive contracting, and they didn't treat all bidders fairly. So yeah, and here's something, the department's been fined. Well, who cares if a government department's been fined? It's still our money. You're taking my money and giving it to yourself. It's ridiculous, but that's how they're dealing with it. And yeah, they were showing that the agency Telephone 9 companies asked if they're interested in a flooring contract. But you dig farther into it, and you just obviously see some inside baseball going on, and playing with things. This is where you could start getting corruption and issues going on, is when there's sole source contracts or meddling with contracts, because of course somebody's uncle has the contract in order to fix something up, because these government ones are lucrative. They aren't like the ones in the private market. They're not like the ones where they'll scrutinize your bid and make sure that it's the most efficient and cost effective one they can get. And they won't be on your case. And of course, they accept that you're going to go over budget. If you're a homeowner and somebody comes in on a contract and does something and they blow the budget right out of the water, chances are you're going to be fighting with them and trying to get your money back, or even that contractor is just going to have to eat it and lose money because they bid it the wrong way. When it comes to government contracts, they just keep coming back and bleeding us dry further and further. It's frustrating. And even Parks Canada, of all places. I grew up in Banff. Parks Canada was kind of the big major administrator out there, being in a national park town. But their contracts apparently have got some funny business going on. They got caught, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, they fined it. Oh, wow, you fined a government organization. So what? You're punishing yourself. All right, I've got my next guest on, and that is Mr. Myke Thomas in studio. How's it going, Mike?
It's sad.
Oh,
I can't believe you're not going to be doing this anymore.
oh yeah, your tears look as real as Dave's
I
do.
know. It doesn't not very good, huh?
Oh well, this will be the last visit on this particular format or show.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, for
We're
sure.
keeping the door open. Things are just changing. So-
Well, they need to. I mean, not that I don't mean there was a need for them, but things
No,
change.
They evolve and they move along. Yeah,
Yeah.
and no, it's all good.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
I'm glad I could get you in on this final week. There's lots to cover. It's always fun when we get you in studio and cover some of this.
Well, we'll see what we can talk about for you.
Well, yeah, we'll start, I guess, with your specialty, and that's the real estate world. We're seeing some housing starts picking up.
Yeah, relative.
Well,
That's a go fish number that CMHC puts out.
mhm.
I mean, that's what they think is going to be by the end of the year. It could be more, it could be less, but in reality, and I mean, it's good that it's that number. It needs to be way more. Even with prices and sales diminishing in the resale market, there is a huge need for new housing stock of all kinds. but more particularly multifamily and more affordable product for lower income people. The rental market's getting crazy. I think yesterday I was reading that the rent on a 2-bedroom condo or apartment in Calgary is pushing, I think it was $1,600. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The prices on resale homes are very slowly coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Sales are really, really down. But getting back to CMHC and housing starts, they couldn't build enough. I mean, they need, I think Shane Wenzel wrote, they need 1 million houses in over the next 2 or 3 years. So that's just, it can't happen. So
yeah, Shane gave you a shout out in that column.
I saw
Actually,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
that he wrote recently. And I was on the Western Standard, just that self-serving plug, westernstandard.news. And you'll find Shane's column where he's talking about that as a home builder, for people who aren't familiar with Shane Wenzel, and pointing out that we have a supply issue. I mean, no matter what you do, how much you meddle in the market, what your interest rates are, if you don't have enough supply, it's going to get expensive.
Yeah, and because it's my favorite topic, and that is slamming the government. It is the government's fault. Government restricts new housing supply while at the same time they're talking about needing to increase it. It's camera jam. That's camera jam kids or something. I can't.
Oh, Katzenjammer kids. That's getting.
See, I'm
way
not
back.
old enough to remember it all exactly. Yeah, but on the resale market, things are slowing down as expected. I'm looking at Calgary this morning, and back in March, which was a record sales month for Calgary, they sold something like 4,200 homes, which is unbelievable. And I think we're on pace in August to do close to 2,000. So that's quite a dip. And it's got everything to do with the rising mortgage rates. And there was a phenomenon going on called fear of missing out, where people were qualifying for mortgages, but the supply wasn't very good. So they'd rush out and buy whatever they could get. And so that helped bring the sales up. It's a phenomenon that probably wouldn't have happened had the Bank of Canada taken the rate down to 0.25% at the beginning of the pandemic. But like everybody else, nobody knew how to handle that pandemic. If there ever was another one, and there might be, hopefully we handled differently. So now the bank is making up for lost ground.
Well, and the bank's probably going to be cranking interest rates further yet. Then.
Yeah, September 7th is the next date. Speculation. There are some people who said, "Oh, inflation's down. Well, it's 7.6%."
Yeah, I was saying that earlier in the show. We're all popping champagne corks, because it went down 0.5% in rise. I mean, it's just, as I said, the best way you put it is less bad than it was last month, but it's still bad.
No, but I saw some chatter today on the internet. Oh, well, the bank maybe will only raise it 2.5% then because things are looking so more positive. No. It's going to be a minimum of 0.5. I think 0.75. Outside chance of raising it by 1%. I don't think they're going to do it at 1%. But nobody expected them to do it last time, so I don't know. But by the end of the year, I think we're looking at 3.25%, which is way above the Bank of Canada's normal, comfortable rate. But
and people have to understand what kind of chill. I mean, outside of the real estate market, I mean, that prime rate impacts capital expenditures a lot. And we're talking about things like the energy sector, mega projects. They're planning out in 10, 20-year segments, and they didn't necessarily take into account that much more expenditure to get that thing rolling. So, I mean, often they're going to contract or reduce the amount they were going to build.
Right. But the thing that might cushion it, well, it should cushion it, is the lenders, for the most part, have already built in that 3.25%. Because they're looking ahead for that very reason. So a lot of the money that people are borrowing right now is based on a bank rate of 3.25. So it's not going to go.
No, but
they're trying to prevent that.
It makes them reevaluate some of their budgets, though, at that point, and leads to things. Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, you're still in for a rough ride for a while yet.
Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know how rough it's going to be. It's not going to be real pleasant, but I think it's going to be more slow than like that.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
Well, yeah, we'll keep hearing that recession word. I listened to one economist saying we need a recession. It's natural. It's the way to correct things. I mean, I don't know if I can see it being natural in the cycle of economics, unfortunately, just with this borrow and contract sort of thing. But saying we need it as if it's a positive development or outcome, I mean, I think a better way to say it is just it's probably inevitable.
Well, it is inevitable, and I guess you want to look at it as a need to be. It's kind of like a medicine. You got a fever, now you got to get something to get rid of it. So is it a terrible, terrible thing? No, and are we going to be in a recession? I don't know. Depends on your definition of what a recession is.
Then they start dancing with what a recession is. And, we're watching that game going on in the States already.
Yeah, well, that's funny down there. It's not a recession. Yeah, it is. There's been no announcement here, though, in terms of officially in a recession. I think we have to look at the GDP numbers, what they were in July, and we'll see that, yeah, we are in a recession.
Yeah. Well, let's see what some of the other stuff you've been talking about. You put out some neat things, some of the dream homes, luxury homes. I see you had an Airbnb site that's carved into a California mountain.
Yeah. That's in the Joshua Tree National Park, about as close as I can figure, an hour and a half northeast of Palm Springs, where Joshua Park is, the Joshua Tree Park. But this house took 20 years to build, and it's pure. There's no timber in the thing. There's no drywall. It's all natural rock, and it's built right into the rocks. It's an amazing house. And is it expensive? The bed in the bedroom costs $500,000.
Wow, well, $10,000 a night to stay in.
Yeah, you can't buy the house. You could Airbnb it, the 3-night minimum.
As a pretty limited audience.
Navi's talking about going down next week, actually. So I think. Yeah.
So he's the standard's flush with money now that they'll have me reducing.
That's right.
Payroll,
yeah.
Right? So
he's in the flush. That's good. Yeah.
Oh wow! But yeah, well, it's funny because Jane and I we have an extra suite attached to our place out in Prentice area, and it's been going very well. Jane's fantastic host. It's an independent suite, and Airbnb's been fantastic to us out that way. And I can see more of that with homeowners, not so much on the 10,000 a night scale, but that's another income generating thing people can do as the cost of housing goes up. Is if you've got that spare space, you're an empty nester, and you want to keep those damn kids from moving in too long, anyways. Well, sorry, it's rented out. You get the spare bedroom over there, but you aren't getting the suite.
Yeah.
It's kind of a growth area. I saw a new story where they're fighting about that, of course, in Toronto. It's kind of like the Uber versus taxi. And of course, the hotels really hate Airbnb.
Oh, totally. And why wouldn't they? Yeah. But no, it's a good deal. So, if you got 30 grand and can get down there, it's probably once in a lifetime opportunity.
Well, yeah, I would think. I'll keep an eye on the lottery tickets and see if my chance comes about, or maybe I'll just find a cliff and start carving my own. It'll probably happen faster than being able to spend $10,000.
From Prentice, you just head out to Bragg Creek and do something out there, maybe.
Yeah, well, they used to let me work with dynamite in the past. If I could get a hold of
no more dynamite for you.
I'm even sober now.
I
barely blew anything up last time. Okay, so we're going to look back a little. I like reviewing the stories, and just to remind everybody, you're right about a lot of things, real estate and so on, but you dive into the others with the Trump under investigation for a violation of the Espionage Act. I mean, this has been making a lot of news, this whole raid on the Mar-a-Lago mansion, and people all wonder what the hell's going on.
Well, I envisioned the piñata, at the kids' parties where they got the sticks and they're banging away at the piñata full of candy and they're waiting for. So Trump is the piñata up there, and it's all the little Democrats running around with their sticks, Russian collusion, this, that, the other thing. And so I think this is just another part of that. They need to get something on this guy, on Trump. We're only, I think, 80 days away from the midterms, and they're sweating bullets. It looks like the Democrats are going to get wiped out, which I think is an overstatement. They're not going to be wiped out, but they could lose control of the Congress.
It's not looking good for them in the midterms.
No, not looking. And it's not that Joe Biden is a very useful president as it is, but should the Republicans take the House down there, he's lame duck. He's done, totally done.
Well, and you start getting into that stalemate going on. I mean, it's the American politics is such a hornet's nest. And the thing that always strikes me too is their elections, as much as they're so polarized and fight so hard, they're still usually it's like 51% to 49%. I mean, it's just such a microscopic line that they're moving on in that country.
Well, that's a good point. I was thinking about that the other day. They're talking about the great division in the country, but it's like you say, 51% this, 49% the other. It's not really a great divide. It's the extremists on either end. It's the same thing here. It's the extremists on either end of the political spectrum who get all the ink, they make the most noise, they get the most attention, but they're not really the ones that we should be focusing on.
No, well, it's so heated, though. I mean, Trump. I mean, he was a bombastic. I'm not a big fan of his, to be honest. I mean, I still would vote Republican if I was in the States. I'm a conservative, but boy, I would have hoped that. Oh, couldn't our party come up with somebody a little better than this guy?
There's good and bad. I'm not real fond of his style. The bombastic thing, we're the greatest, always has been. I mean, he's sending out on his social media true site things today that are like, okay, Don, just back off a bit. But we're Canadians, we're a little more laid back, so maybe it's but you've got to admit, at least this is the way I see it, is that he did some pretty good things for that country.
Well, he shook the establishment.
Yeah.
And it was an establishment that needed to be shaken up. That's part of what the amount of this loathing is. I mean, they are still ticked off at how he rattled their perch, including some of the Republicans in the establishment too.
But again, his style, I don't know. That's like having the best hockey player in the world who just likes going around slashing people with a stick, but he scores the most goals.
But I mean, I think maybe it'll come to some ease if people get to the point of accepting, or if he would ever say, but there's not much to expect him to say, that he's not running again. That, you're finished. You're going to retire. You're going to kick back.
There's nothing Donald Trump wants more than to be the president of the United States again.
And
whether or not it's going to happen, I don't know.
I don't either. It's such a because again, I'm sure the Dems have got to be sweating because Biden isn't exactly what you'd call strong. So he's most definitely vulnerable to a strong run. But I mean, another term of Trump, and I could see a civil war breaking out in that.
Well, you might get one anyway.
Well,
so maybe it's in the cards. That can be done about it. I don't know.
It's just so bizarre, and it just doesn't stop. As I said, it's just the headlines. And did he take things from the office? Does he have cases of sensitive materials? I mean, he invoked the Fifth. And they were quick to point out one of his own speeches when he said, anybody invoking the Fifth is clearly guilty. And then, now he's invoking,
that's Donald.
That's him. I know.
He's a showman. He's Barnum Bailey. Totally.
Well, you put a reality star in office and you got what you're going to get.
Yeah. Let's get back to housing for just a second.
Sure,
talking about Canada and the United States. I just want to say to the people out there that you're going to see things continue to go down a bit. You don't panic. Do not panic. Everybody's situation is different in terms of whether or not you get to keep the house or you have to sell it and stuff like that. And I mention this because you might start seeing things get even worse in the United States. But you have to understand down there, the rules are different. You buy a house, you get a 30-year mortgage down there. Plus, if you get into a situation where you can't make the payments, you go to the bank and say, here's the keys. See ya. You walk away and there's nothing they can do. In Canada, that's not going to happen. It can't happen because we've got CMHC insurance, the qualification, stress tests, and stuff like that. So if you see this happening in the United States, do not for a moment think it's going to happen here. People panicking and putting their houses on the market for sale when they don't really need to, it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy that everything will go down the ditch a lot quicker.
Yeah, well, and that's advice that financial advisors give on just about everything anyways, with any portfolios. Look at the long game. Don't panic respond in reacting. We've had Andrew Rulin from Integrated Wealth Management talking about that. Okay, markets are dipping. Hang on. Don't rush out there. I mean, when you get a panic sell, as you say, with self-fulfilling, well, then it snowballs and you can get a collapse, and then everybody gets kind of scared.
Yeah, and I think the figure everybody looks at, understandably, is the value, what the perceived value of the house. And somebody's going to have bought a house at $350 that probably in April rocketed up to $425, and now it's moving back down to $350, and they think they're losing money, but they're not. That's what you bought it for. Yeah. It's little things like that you got to keep in mind, and don't take financial advice from Uncle Ernie unless Uncle Ernie's a financial guy.
Yeah,
a lot of people do that.
Well, I mean that's part of I can't remember. Was a guest on a while back just on how things change. Again, it's not so much in the housing, but in stocks. I mean, not that long ago, you used to have to go through a stockbroker. You'd have to talk to somebody who was licensed and ostensibly, I mean, a lot of corruption among them and incompetency, but for the most part had some degree of knowledge of it. And they would counsel a person, don't jump in and out on this like that. Don't move around. But now a person can just get online, click, trade stocks, and it added to the volatility of trade in ways that they never imagined would happen. And it still makes for a difficult to rely on a lot of things in that market.
Yeah, completely.
So people don't buy and sell houses that quickly.
Some people do.
Well, that's in a world that I don't live in and I don't even want to think about. We're still working on paying the one we got now.
Yeah. No, I know some people who are in that business. They do quite well. They're not shysters or anything like that. They'll buy a house. 9 times out of 10, the house needs renovations anyway, so they go in, fix it up, add $10,000 or $12,000 to the sales price, and go. So it's not a bad deal for some people.
Well, there's a lot of reality shows about that. I mean, the flippers and things like that. Yeah, why not? I mean, pick it up. You're assuming the risk. I mean, if you fix it up poorly or the market collapses on you, you're stuck in a house that you bought for more than it's worth. That's your like anything else.
Like walking into a casino with a lot of money, walking out broke.
Well,
your choice.
Yeah, no, I've managed to do that already.
I know.
Right on. Okay, well, before I let you get running here, what else are you working on? What do you got to look forward to?
I think maybe a patio in my future. Oh, you mean for the rest of the week?
Well, I was thinking on your columns, unless you're going to do a how-to or something on patio construction.
I should do something on patios. I got a lot of things in the mix right now. I was talking to Naylor. Things are pretty slow right now. So dog days of summer, middle of August, things are going to pick up. I think there's going to be a lot of things happening right after Labor Day things are going to start moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
So things are going to pop up.
Right on. Well, it was good to have you on one more time, Myke.
Cory, appreciate it.
And
I always enjoyed coming on.
Yeah.
And like I say, we'll see you around somewhere.
Oh, yeah. I'm not vanishing. Things are just changing.
All right. Great.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
You got it.
Great. So that was our Myke Thomas, and you can find him at the Western Standard, of course, online, westernstandard.news. And he puts a lot of columns out. That's why I was turning my head and scrolling. I should have done my research a little more before the show, but I'm always scrambling. So what did Myke write about recently? I know I read them, but I can't remember. So we covered that. A lot of real estate stuff, but as I said, he dips into and speculates on the political issues as well. And you can find his profile on the site, of course, and scroll down and see what he's been running about. Ashley pointing out Trump derangement syndrome. There's a lot of truth to that too. That's a talk about the whole polarity thing. I don't want to point fingers on who or how or why it ended up that way, but I mean, there are people that I think there was a meme I saw with somebody just saying, "Hey, watch this," as a cartoon, and he walks up to a liberal and just says Trump, and then the head just pops and explodes. I mean, it's pretty close. That's all it takes. Wow, they're just so wound up with that guy. Like I said, I'm not a fan of his, but I don't lose my mind with everything he's done as well at the same time. But that's that interesting thing. That's what I'm saying is there's not many people sitting in a mushy middle, it seems, down there with these things. They're all either over here, or at least whoever's in the middle, they're really quiet. And we're not hearing a lot from them. So we're hearing the very emotional and strong views. But the midterms are coming up, and we are going to see things getting a lot more heated, like Myke was saying, because we've got a desperate Democrats here who don't want to take a blow in the midterms, because you've got a doddering president there who people are questioning his capability in general. And if he's takes a beating in these midterms and they get set back dearly, particularly if they lose the House, it's going to look really ugly for them, potentially for the 2024 general election. So lots of politics going on down there, and crazy times, lots of that. So let's see. Let me speak about my sponsor one more time. One more sponsor, and that is the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. They're speaking of liberals and things coming down. They are after your firearms, guys. This isn't news. This isn't that hard to determine. They have been obsessed with coming after them since the 90s. They want to take your property. We don't have property rights here. If you look at it in the charter, it says we have the right to the enjoyment of property. Thanks, Pierre. Either way, the government is constantly changing the rules, recategorizing, and they are going to be coming from you. You got to stand up for yourself. The way to do that, work together, guys. Join an association. Join the association, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Tony Bernardo runs it. He's been a fantastic advocate for those of us who enjoy firearms, whether target shooting or hunting or any of those sports, anything like that, or even collecting. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't have to justify why you may want to own any firearms. If you're a law-abiding citizen, you have every right to. But you're not going to have that right for long. And if you don't stand up for yourself, join this group, take out a membership, you're increasing the chances that this government's going to win and they're going to steal your property. So check them out, Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Take out a membership. Their website is cssa-cila.org. All right. Let's see what else we've got going on. James Crease saying, more handguns for everyone, freedom. There we go. And yeah, everything's been backed up. You know, we've seen those discussions. I mean, Trudeau rushing. Part of what happened, he went and, of course, did an order in council and prematurely rushed out and stopped the importation of legal firearms, which aren't causing any crimes or hurting anybody. The reason for that, though, is because he proposed Bill 21, where he was going to stop all the sales anyways. We knew he was going to come and seize them next. That was his goal. He wants to take them away. But what it led to was a rush. Everybody's buying. So now what are we going to do? Oh, man, I'm going to have like 5 times as many handguns to have to come and steal off people later when we decide to come around and steal them. So let's stop the border from the legal importation of them. Meanwhile, as I read on the news the other day, Akwesasne and other reserves have been smuggling them in, and there's big bucks because the true criminal guns are being unhindered. They're just pouring into the country, and it doesn't matter. And so Trudeau's, you know, again, he's attacking the problem where there was no problem existing, and he's ignoring the real problem, and that's gangsters and drug smugglers and the rest who are bringing in illegal firearms. The people who jump through all the hoops to own a handgun. These aren't people committing crimes, guys. They aren't doing it. So either way, stand up for your rights. You got to try. Let's see. You know, speaking of, again, the corruption of the government, the incompetence of the government, just everything. So 2 of the people behind the accusation of political interference into the investigation of the 2020 mass shooting in Nova Scotia, they're going to be going before a House of Commons committee today. So that's RCMP Chief Superintendent Darren Campbell and Leah Scanlon, a Strategic Communications Director. And they said Brenda Lucky said she was pressured by the federal government to release information on the gunman's weapons. This was right when the investigation was hot, right when it was going on. We got the Prime Minister's office apparently pissing around in the investigation. We got the chief of the RCMP, the chief, the head of the super commissioner. It sounds like obliging the Prime Minister. You know, people keep saying we don't need a provincial police force. This is why we need one. Because the federal one is hopelessly corrupted, hopelessly beholden to a prime minister who is an authoritarian nutbar, who is wanted for his own firearm grabs. That's why they wanted to go into this. They wanted the information on what the firearms were used because they wanted to move as fast as possible, take political advantage. The bodies weren't even cold yet from the slaughter that son of a bitch did out there. And all Justin Trudeau's office is thinking about is how can we score political points out of this? And this should have been a scandal that should have been rocking the nation. It makes me sad for the state of this nation that it didn't make as much news as it did. But either way, they're going before a Commons committee. Hopefully this news, this story reignites because it's outrageous. You know, the police investigators are specialists. That's what they do. They're looking, and this was the most serious, you know, the largest mass shooting in Canadian history. It's a day later, and the government is pissing around with it. No. Brad saying, Cory, I hear Kenny bragging that they're going to put a nuclear reactor next door to you. I hope so. I want to see more nuclear reactors. You know, it's a form of power it's really getting wrongly smeared and things. And if we really want to improve some things, you know, bring it on. I say that's no problem. If it's going to be right next to my house, well, I guess I'll have to sell at a premium price, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. Here's another medical story. You know, getting back to my ranting about the health system in general. And this is for the second time in less than a month, a resident of Ashcroft, BC died while waiting for healthcare. This is rural BC. You see, these stories are coming up all across the country. And I like bringing them up, too, to remind people, because every time it happens in Alberta, Rachel Notley gets jumping up and down on her pulpit and saying, look, Jason Kenney killed this guy. Jason Kenney's killed healthcare. Jason Kenney's bad for this. UCP's bad for that. Conservatives bad for that. No, there's nothing to do with the UCP. It's happening in every province in the country. Ashcroft has been under NDP rule in BC for quite some time. And people are dying waiting for ambulances. And it sounds like this guy was within sight of the local ambulance station, but it took half an hour for paramedics to get to him, and he died. And this is happening all over the place. It has nothing to do with local governments. It has to do with the system. And I'm going to keep ranting about that even when I'm done with this show. I'll be writing columns about it. I'll be doing show appearances on other people's shows, whatever. But the system is broken, guys. It's broken. Quit trying to tinker with it. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt under one of the dozens and dozens of European models that are far superior to ours. And Denise pointing out, yes, he was the second one in Ashcroft. Multiple in a small town, people dying, waiting for ambulances. And here's another story that followed right after that. A family doctor wanted, this is a New Brunswick woman going on Twitter trying to find a family doctor. The waiting list is at 74,000 to try and get a doctor out there right now. There's people without a family doctor or a regular doctor. Family doctors are important, especially as you get older and you need, just that regularity. They know your history. They know existing conditions, things like that. Being able to regularly go to the same doctor is important. It helps for better care. I mean, one-time visits to some fantastic doctors, walk-in clinics, great. They're fine for immediate things, but for the longer-term care, it's very important to have a family physician, but you can't get them in New Brunswick. Again, can't blame Jason Kenney for that. Hey, I blame him for all sorts of crap. It had nothing to do with this. It's all the way out in New Brunswick. So sorry, Rachel. You're going to blame Kenney for that too? Of course not. It's the system. It's broken. We've been spending. You can't say we haven't been spending enough. Every province in Canada has dramatically increased spending on healthcare. Likewise with those goofballs with the teachers union, and they're pissing and moaning. They're getting near the end of their summer holidays, so they're getting crankier than usual. They're 2 months off that the rest of us don't get to enjoy. Going on saying we've been cutting spending to the bone in education. Oh, they're running out of money in education. No, they aren't. We've been increasing spending in education year after year after year after year. God, I couldn't imagine the noise you ass clowns would make if we actually cut spending in public education. You just act like it. No, the problem is these union contracts keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. And it's costing us more, so the services decline. The services aren't declining for lack of spending. They're declining because we're overpaying a whole bunch of bloated, useless teachers in there. Not saying they're all bloated and useless, but there's way too many of them who are. There's a lot of teachers who could probably effectively teach twice as many students in a classroom, and there's a lot of teachers who really should be still making happy faces and lattes somewhere because they aren't fit to be teaching our children. We need to shake up that system, but when you're heavily, heavily unionized, it's hard to reform and fix and change a system like that. So it's not for lack of money, it's the system, and that applies to education and healthcare. You got to look at the whole damn thing. What's this? Pamela Jones-Kenney saying our doctor in Kamloops is trying to bring a qualified doctor in from England. The College of Physicians and Surgeons is putting roadblocks in the way. Yeah, it's happening everywhere. We're having problems. There was a story I read a little while back with a gentleman who was trying to come in. I think it was from Serbia, but a highly qualified, I think, emergency nurse or something. He wanted to find work here. He kept trying in Ontario, going through the process. He finally threw up his hands and said, "The hell with it." He's gone to Texas. Again, it's the system, and it's the unions, it's the associations, it's the things like that. Brad saying, is that true that the teachers booed Smith? Yeah, they did. Yeah, those teachers got pretty damn upset when Daniel Smith dared to question their sacred place within the Canadian system, the Alberta system. We really need a voucher system. We need competition. We need better choice for parents. We need choice for patients as well when it comes to healthcare. All of these things. Get this bloody socialist crap out of the way where you only have a monopolistic single provider. When there's a monopoly, the consumer always loses, always, whether it's a private monopoly or a government monopoly. Let those tax dollars follow those kids. And yes, even if it's a private school, whether your kid gets $5,000 a year in their voucher or $2,000, whatever it might be, and then the parents want to kick in another $5,000 and go to a private school on top of that, good for them. Or if they want to stay in a public system, but the $5,000 voucher gets them to that school, good for them too. Because you know what? Then suddenly parents are going to be watching for educational outcomes. They're going to be looking for quality. And they're going to be following up. And they're going to say, damn it, that school's not getting my kid if you guys don't perform. And that school's going to say, geez, we're not going to get any money unless these teachers perform. And then the deadweight useless teachers are going to get flushed out. And everybody remembers them. We went through them. I remember in high school, I had a math teacher. Magnificent man. He was fantastic. Drove things home to me in ways that other teachers couldn't succeed. Worth every nickel, probably worth twice as much as what he's made. We had a biology teacher. I had to drop Bio 20 twice because she was so incompetent, inept, and terrible. And half of the class dropped that class each semester when they tried to get in because you couldn't pass it because she couldn't teach you, but you couldn't get rid of her. And this, yeah, unfortunately, I date myself, but that's over 30 years ago. It hasn't changed. When you got a unionized monopoly with a scale where these guys are making six figures after 11 years and all those benefits and all of that, and a lot of them got in not because they love teaching, they got in because they love stability and money, and summers off, and Christmas off, and professional days, and spring break, and then to piss and moan about it all the time too. Yeah, we need some competition out there. And again, teachers are valuable. Teachers have a hell of a tough job. Not everybody can do it, but it doesn't mean they're sacred. But in fact, it means we got to hold them to a higher standard, not constantly bringing that bar down lower. And here's an interesting one. A federal IT department, Shared Services Canada, spent $50,000 back to the government incompetency. Union members, by the way. $50,000 to interview 58 computer students to ask if they'd like to work in Ottawa. Why are we going broke, eh? You wonder? Well, we got departments, federal departments, those can manage to spend $50,000 to talk to 58 people. And I go through that and talking to people just to get guests on the show over the course of a week, and I assure you, I don't make anywhere close to $50,000 for it. And what did they find out from those students anyways? Well, students found that it looked like it was boring, bureaucratic, and hierarchical. Hierarchical? Ooh, wow, that's a tough one, actually. My teachers failed me on my English. I couldn't pronounce it right. Either way, the reasons a lot of graduating students in computer sciences, things like that, don't want to go into government work because it looks boring. You're not going to get the best. You're not going to get ones with ambition. You're going to get the ones who want to they want the boring, they want the regular, and they just want to mail it in. That's the ones government gets. That's why the government has the Phoenix payroll system that's cost billions of dollars. They can't even pay themselves right. Well, this is what's happening. Either way, pollsters with the Phoenix Strategic Perspectives Incorporated, speaking of some of these people who somehow get those good contracts from civil service things, were paid $49,966 to come up with that report. Now, I wonder which pollster with this group that I've never heard of might have had a tight connection with a person in authority within that particular government department. I don't know. Might be a coincidence. Here's another beauty. Okay, Canadian heritage. Yeah, that's an area that's getting more and more intrusive on us in a number of levels, actually. So they've hired an anti-racism director. Okay, fine. This fellow's name is Laith Maroof. But this is what this is a quote from him. This is from Twitter a little while back. And this is his own words. And this is a guy they've hired as an anti-racism director. And here's his words. Those Jews, he's talking about Jews, and he says they're white supremacist, loudmouth bags of human feces. When Palestine is liberated and Jews have to leave, they'll return to being low-voiced bitches of their Christian, secular, white supremacist masters. I'm not misquoting. In fact, I want to read that a second time. Those Jewish white supremacists, loudmouth bags of human feces. When Palestine is liberated and Jews have to leave, he said they will return to being low-voiced bitches of their Christian, secular, white supremacist masters. This man has been hired as an anti-racism director with Canadian heritage. This hate-filled piece of crap is actually going to tell us how we're supposed to behave. He's getting probably six figures from the government in your tax dollars to teach us, apparently, how to go on rampages like that. How on earth, when somebody is hired, I mean, that's the first thing we do in every modern place is you Google a person, you look this up, and there is this tweet from this lunatic, this hateful racist man. And he gets put into a position as an anti-racist director? This is our government at work, guys. This is our government at work. This is how we're going to reduce hate? Are they going to hire somebody from the Ku Klux Klan next and stick them in there? Because he's so familiar with racism, perhaps? Maybe that's what their logic is. You get some intolerant bigot piece of crap, and if we put them in there, they might figure out, because they know personally how it works, so we'll put a Klan member in there, or Aryan Nations, or some other nutball. This guy's no better. Those words, like, holy crap. Yeah, there's your dollars at work. All right, that's enough out of me for today, guys. Listen, tomorrow, and it's going to be a sensitive subject, and that's fine. We cover those things. But I'm going to have a panel on the final time because I've been covering that a lot. And it's funny, this gets shouted down as racism whenever people talks about it. But I'm going to have Jaime Rubenstein and Brian Gesprecht and Mr. Clifton coming on. They've all been on before. They're all very familiar with the old Indian residential schools. One of them even worked in them in the past. And we're just going to have a three-person panel going on at length to kind of finish things up, because I've been really exploring that subject where the mainstream doesn't want to talk about it, and really dig into the Indian residential school issue in depth. And this supposed alleged graves having been found in residential school sites. So they're going to be on tomorrow. Plus, of course, lots of ranting, lots of news and other things. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. Always a good time. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 11:30 a.m.